Hi everybody, welcome back to this build. This is part 3 now of the Avro Lancaster B.III special, the Dambusters from Airfix in 1/72 scale. If you've been watching me with part 1 and 2, we've covered quite a few bits and pieces. In part 2 we got the, well actually I think we did this in part 1, didn't we? We got this all together. We've added some extra detailing down there to look like map pockets. They're just simple blocks of plastic. In this scale it needs to be nothing more than that. It's just that when you look in the top you'll see something in there. So we've also got the a few little bits and pieces here. We've got the navigator's table built up. We did a little modification to get the G radio in there. We've got his seat there. There's his oxygen bottle next to the seat, and that's that basically. We've got the instrument panel here with the rudder pedals glued on the back, all nicely cleaned up, ready for paint. And we've got the seat all cleaned up, ready to go and assembled, and the control columns in there as well. So keeping all that in our little Chinese curry pot. Okay, so going into the instructions, we can sort of look at what we've already done. We've done all this. Okay, we haven't actually fitted the pilot or anything. We're not going to fit the pilot. I don't like to put pilots in my aircraft. You may want to do that. If you do, carry on. Obviously, we haven't put any decals on yet or anything because we haven't painted the seat. We haven't put the decal on the instrument panel because we haven't painted the instrument panel. And we haven't put the maps in. We haven't fitted any decals on there. We've done no decals or anything. All we've done is build. And what I'm doing is building sub-assemblies. So as you can see here, this is all going to be green. Okay. Everything here is going to be green. So it's going to get primed and then it's going to get painted green. Same in here. We've built up, excuse me guys, clearing my throat. We've built up the navigator's table. We've done a little modification there to get the G radio in and everything. We got this bulkhead on the end. We've got this bulkhead here, and we got the chair on its upright and everything in there. So I need to do that ejector pin mark before we do anything else. And then we've got the instrument panel here with the rudder pedals glued on. We've got the seat assembled. Now, if you remember, I haven't put the seat in because when we actually come to fit the cockpit inside the aircraft, that seat will be sitting up, and it will be sitting up like this, and basically the headrest is likely to get snapped off. So I haven't fitted the seat yet, so we can sand all this down when we do this seam and not worry about damaging anything because there's nothing sticking up. I haven't put the control column in yet either because that's going to be painted black and everything else will be painted green. I may well just pop that in before we put the cockpit in, or I may put it in afterwards. It's easy to drop the seat and the instrument panel, not the instrument panel, the control column after you've put the cockpit in. After the fuselage is assembled, you must put the instrument panel in first. So that leads me on to colours. Okay, now I just told you this is going to be painted all green, this here. Whereas if you look at the colour callouts, they're asking for these ends to be painted black. Well, yes, they're going to be painted black because they're the wheelbase. This centre area here is going to be green. Interior green is 78. They're telling you here to paint this part of the floor. 78, interior green. The seat, interior is matte black. The base of the seat is matte black. The headrest is green. Then we've got the control column is black. Okay. And then we've got the rudder pedals and the instrument panel is black. Fine. And then they're telling us here to paint this area of the fuselage here is green, but this area inside the bomb bay is black, which is correct. But they're also telling us to paint the nose black. Now, it's a common thought that Lancaster's nose area was always painted black. That is not true. Okay, it's complete myth. The nose area of Lancasters were green. And up until around about, I would say early 44, maybe late 43, they were green, and then they changed to black because the bomb aimers complained that when they got caught in the spotlights, they lit up like a Christmas tree because of the fairly bright green colour. It was almost like this colour here. More on that colour in a minute. But for this period of aircraft, that is incorrect. Okay, now what they did in real life, if you're not interested in real Lancasters, skip through this. If you just want to build it to the instructions, then build it to the instructions. You don't have to listen to what I'm waffling on about. But basically, all the Lancasters were green. Okay, as I say, up until it was, I can't find a specific date, but it was sort of sometime between November 43 and sort of February 44, they changed to black. Now, not only did they change to black in the factory, but they actually overpainted a lot of the aircraft black. And you can actually look and see images on Google Images. If you put in bomb aimers area on Google Images, you will see images and you can see that the whole nose area has been painted black. But the area around the perspex window, so basically where the window is riveted in to the fuselage here, okay, you'll see a ring around the outside of the window which is still green, where they haven't removed the perspex to paint it black. At the end of the day, it was a wartime war machine. It wasn't supposed to look pretty, it wasn't supposed to be smart. So what they'd have done is just masked off the perspex, gone around with the paint and just painted everything black. All the cables, everything. They probably put some sheets over the electronic equipment, but everything got painted black. Including the railing. There's a grab rail that goes down the side here. That you can grab hold of when you walk down into the nose area. That was painted black. In those same images you will see there is black paint over it, and if you look carefully you can see the overspray where the paint hasn't got it, sort of disappears into overspray, and the area on the back of them is yellow because those rails were painted yellow. They're telling you here to paint this area of the cockpit floor black. That's not correct. Okay. Here, I mentioned about not fitting this bomb sight. They're telling you to paint that black. That should be green. This is the Mark 14 bomb sight. Earlier aircraft had the ABS, but some aircraft had both frameworks. And I'm sure you've seen Lancasters with this triangular frame here inside the nose blister. So basically, all of this area in here, for the period of chastise, May 43, would have all been green. How do I know this? Right. It's not because my friend said his mate's dad told him so. It's not because I read it in a modelling magazine. It's not because somebody told me on the internet, or I looked at something on Brit Modeler and somebody said, no, in 42 they started changing them to black. They may as well say in 42 they started painting the interiors pink. With nothing to back it up, I don't believe anything anyone tells me. I also don't believe in restored aircraft. I also don't believe in rebuilt aircraft, and I don't believe in sort of drawings and not blueprints, but actual sketches, CAD images, whatever, because all they are is an artist's impression. Okay, I'll give you a perfect example that I heard only today. I was actually on a live stream, and Dale and Matt from Airfix were on there, and they've got a brand new 1/48 scale Bristol coming out, Bristol Bulldog I think it is, and they worked from drawings, and they actually went to Hendon and scanned an aircraft to get the shape of the fuselage, and when they looked at the drawings they thought, hang on a minute, this is a bit wrong. Then they looked a bit deeper and they found out that the Bristol Bulldog that's actually in Hendon was crashed. And then it was rebuilt. And when it was rebuilt, they didn't have drawings to work to. So the actual aircraft in Hendon is not the correct shape that a Bristol Bulldog was when it was made. So there is absolute proof. Do not use restored aircraft as proof for your modelling. Okay? If you're not worried about accuracy, if you don't care, then it doesn't matter. Just fill your boots. But certainly when it comes to colours and overall shape, I like to be right. And I don't like to be sort of making it wrong. I especially don't like it when people tell me I'm wrong, and I absolutely know I'm right. Everything I say here is open for debate, but if you want to debate what I'm saying, please have evidence to back it up, because right now I'm going to show you evidence to back up everything I'm saying. Here we have, this is a fantastic book. This is called, I've got brown paper to protect it because it's got a lovely satiny cover and it would mark and fingerprint easy. This is called Dambuster Lancaster. It's no longer in print, but it's by Pater Farchevitz and Mark Postlethwaite. Mark Postlethwaite is he of Wing Leader Productions fame. Okay, so this book is wonderful, but it is all CAD images. There's a photograph there. Okay, you can see there's ED825, which is what this actual aircraft is going to be. So we've got a photograph there, and then we go through the book and we can see there's another photograph. This is PGS. Okay, but mainly this book is all about CAD images. Now I can see straight away here, this here is incorrect. you can see, I don't know if you can see because of the gloss on the page, but you can see they have depicted the way the turret has been removed, and we've got a trace there of where the fairing was. That's not correct. In the wing leader book it tells you how they were covered up, and it shows you, and you didn't have that ring round there. What they did, they covered it all with dope linen. In fact, that may be what they're actually trying to show you there, is the dope linen, but the actual frame that went over wasn't that shape. The panel that covered it wasn't that shape. It was kind of oval with flat sides, and I've got proof. Here you can see there's what I was talking about, the belly gun underneath, and this is where in this book they think the light was fitted. I actually think the light was fitted up here where the D is, but that's open for debate, and that is a massive case of open for debate, I'm afraid. But you can see here there's that clear panel that's supposed to go in there, and it's actually not there in the kit. You can also see here when you look at the kit, the gun's facing back, but they've got the light facing forward with the panel behind. So did they put the light in there where the gun is and have it looking out of the hole, or did they turn the panel around? Who knows? But I don't believe the light was put in there anyway. So going through, as I say, you've got all these lovely CAD images, and they are beautiful, beautiful images, but they are open for debate, because when you look in here, okay, we can see there's the light fitted in the nose, and as I would imagine, there's no camera. The camera's been removed, and I'm kind of thinking to myself, you know, you have to think about logic when you think about these sort of things. They removed the the mid upper turret. They removed other parts of the aircraft to get the weight down to carry the upkeep bomb. Why would they have left a stonking great camera in there? They may have left the frame behind because it was probably aluminium, but why would they have left the camera in there? Why would they leave the bomb computer in there for all the bomb sights and everything? Why would they have a bomb sight? It would get in the way of the forward vision. So just think about things as you go. Here you can see where they think the light was fitted. You can see, so they did have it. They had the light fitted in the front and the gun was facing out the back. I personally think the light was fitted further forward. Now here you can see in the nose, they have it all painted black. And they've got these lines drawn on the nose blister. And apparently what they did, they had a piece of string, and they would put their head and pull it back on the string. And when they saw the actual towers on the dam in those lines, sorry, it's glossy, you can't really see what's going on. When they saw the towers on the dams in those lines, that's when they knew they were at the right distance to drop the bomb. Sounds a bit dubious, you know. I believe they use these, but you know, who knows. You can see here they've got the frames removed for the bomb sight, and there's a frame there which is removed for the Mark 14, and then you've got the two triangular frames here for the ABS. They're removed as well. There's no mention in here of stirrups. There's no mention of bags to go in the front turret. And as you can see when you go through here, they've got the sidewall of the cockpit up here all painted in black. And here, sorry, I'm off camera. We've got the sidewall here all painted in black, and here got something stuck on there. And we've got a armour plate there, and you can see the seat is all green. This is all green. All the area down here is all green. Okay, they have got the black nose area. When you go over the page, the armour plate's gone. Now they may have removed the armour plate so that you could see all this up here, but the armour plate's gone nonetheless. Now we're all green around here. Okay, so this is what I'm saying about references. You can see here we've got an all black painted nose. Now the lines have disappeared, but we still have no bomb aimers frames. Come to the upkeep bomb. Red oxide, some crews painted their bombs black. Airfix would have you believe it's painted green with red and yellow stripes on it. And there we go, it's just going on and on and on. Now the trouble with this is an artist's impression of what they've read, what they've heard, what their opinion is. So if Poiter was working with Mark, and Mark told him that the noses were painted black, then he's done the nose black. Airfix have somehow found out that the nose was painted black, so they've done it black. I'm going to show you the work of a modeller who I very much respect. This is by Carl Robertshaw, and this is a 1/32 scale Dambuster. I'm sorry that this is going on, but it's all good information for you. So this is a 1/32 scale Dambuster. This is AJW, all right, Flight Lieutenant Les Munro's aircraft. And you can see here he has included the frames for the ABS bomb sight. He's also got the frame in there for the Mark 14 bomb sight. The nose turret is all painted in silver and green. Okay. Bear in mind this one shows the book. This book shows the nose turret is all painted in black. The instructions in Airfix will tell you how it's all black. You can see here all the nose area, all the cockpit area, it's all painted green. Okay. Same with all the fuselage back on the inside. He's got some beautiful, this is an absolutely gorgeous build. There's the nose turret, just how I've done mine on my border model. Green base, silver frames and black details. Okay. We can see there, what can we see here? Nothing. And we can see here, we have the green nose, we have the frames in there and everything, and that's basically that. But again, this is a modeller's impression. This is not fact. Okay, this is what he's showing us. So let's look at some facts. This is the Wing Leader Archive number 18. Wing Leader Photo Archive number 18. I've done a full review of these books. I've done a full review of every single Wing Leader book there is. And on the front there it's showing the Grand Slam, which I recently bought in 1/32 scale. Now, you can see down here we've got some lovely colour images, well, colour images and some black and white images of actual aircraft from World War II. And if we go over the page, if we go into this book here, we have basically colour images, and we get to this section here, Type 464 provisioning. So this is all about the Dambusters. Okay, so be careful with your dates and make sure you read everything properly. You can see on here it's showing us we've got the G aerial fitted. Note the colour of the frames inside. Note the colour of the turret. Okay, note the colour of the flaps. They're black. You can see here the turret inside is aluminium. It's bright aluminium. That's clearly not black. You can see here, now what I always do with these, I always look at this frame here, which is inside the window, and this frame here, which is inside the window, and you can clearly see that that is not black. You can clearly see here we've got the frame there on the side for the Mark 14. We've got the two frames here for the ABS bomb sight. This aircraft was delivered, this is the actual model we're building. This aircraft was delivered to Scampton on the day of the mission and was taken as it was a spare aircraft, and it had to be used because one of the other aircraft wasn't playing ball. So this aircraft actually went out like this, and it had no lights on it. I've talked about that before. But it definitely had a green nose interior, and it definitely had a silver and green turret. Okay, it wasn't all black. You can see here the bomb is definitely not green with stripes on it. You see here there's evidence of the front light, and you can see the lights point off to the side. A lot of people think they point straight down, but it's obvious if they pointed straight down you wouldn't be able to see them. You can see here they have cable cutters on them. Okay, so they actually had cable cutters on the wing. I'm not sure if this kit depicts cable cutters. I doubt that it does in 72nd scale. They probably wouldn't be seen. But here you can see, now they're showing the turret as being painted black. Okay, now it doesn't say this. Okay, but normally they tell you in this book, or in the other books, what colour the turrets are. You can see the rear turret is black. That's normal. That was a very early change, but they left the front turret silver and green for quite a while. Go over the page here and you look at that and you think, well, wow, that front's surely black and everything. But this is after the war. And also you can see there that that turret frame is clearly not black. You can see there, like I say, you can look inside that window frame and you can see in there that it's clearly not black. You can see that frame is clearly aluminium. So check your references, check your photographs, and don't believe everything you get told or you see in drawings or whatever. The other thing to be very careful of is you'll see here they're photographing this. You can see it's still got the upkeep bomb fitting. Yeah, all right. This is after chastise, because you can see clearly there's a bomb. I think it's an ABS in there, isn't it? No, it's got the SABS, so they're probably testing with that. So, you know, be very careful. You can see here that's got the SABS, which is 617, I believe, were the only squadron to get the SABS bomb sight. You can see here that one's clearly black, okay, but this is later war, so there's no date there, but you can see we've got the Lincoln treaded wheels and everything. So there we go. And just to sort of clarify with these books, here you can see here's a wartime colour photo, and you can see there that turret is clearly silver and green, and the interior on the nose is clearly green. Now, the only thing I don't know, let's just show you something here as well, 67. These pictures were taken, this is September 43, okay? And you can see that that nose is clearly green inside, and that railing behind is yellow. All right, and we've got the SABS, sorry, we've got the ABS, and we've got the Mark 14 bomb sight in there, bomb sight brackets in there. All right, so, and that is September 43, way after the chastise. So they were still painting them green, and they were still fitting those brackets in there. Okay, you can see here November 42, all silver and everything in the turret. They don't tend to talk too much about the green interiors on here, but there you go. So that's the early production batches, and that's photo archive number 5. And then you can see here on the later ones, they're clearly showing you a black nose turret. This is June 44. There's a lovely A20 there behind it, look. So photographs is what you need for your reference. Now, if somebody comes on this channel and tells me that they've got a photograph that proves that the Dambuster, they got a photograph taken inside a 464, and it proves they had those lines on the blister, the nose was black, and it was taken before chastise, or on the day of chastise, I'll stand corrected. But after that, it's out the window, because we don't know what happened after chastise. These aircraft went on and did lots and lots of other bits and pieces, and some got converted into other aircraft and stuff. So check your books, check your references, and don't ever believe just what somebody said. Just to finish off, another common misconception that goes around. People say the B.25, the P.61, the A20, the A26, all their landing gear, their wheels were the same, or their tyres were the same. That's absolute poppycock. It's not true at all. They're all different sizes. So there you go. Okay, so right, that's enough about that. So what I'm going to do now is stop the video, and what I'll do is I will put a time stop at the front, so it tells you to come here if you don't want to listen to all that garbage I've just been talking about. Okay then guys, so when it comes to painting, I always prime first. You don't have to, I always do. It's just a good practice to get into, because what happens is when you prime, if you've got any horrible great gouges or sink marks or whatever, they will pop out. When you paint something with matte grey, I use, this is Mr. Surfacer 1200, and I thin it right down so it's really, really thin, ready for spraying. As I say, throughout this video I will use an airbrush. You can brush paint if you want to, but that's just a case of brushing the paint on. But there's a few things you need to know about that, which I'll cover now. So I always prime first, and also then if you're going to do any weathering or you want to put any oils on or anything, the paint will stick better. The primer will basically bond to the plastic if you use like a solvent primer, and then the paint will bond to the primer. So then when you do your weathering and stuff, it'll just flake off. If you use like Viejo paints like these here, and you spray these direct onto plastic, they're not very hard wearing at all. You can easily scratch them off with your fingernail. Whereas if you spray a solvent primer down first, great. I would not recommend Vallejo's primer. Okay, or it's actually said Vallejo. It's like a polyurethane based, and it sort of almost like a plastic coat. It peels off. So I would thoroughly recommend like a Mr. Surfacer primer, and then a Tamiya or some other colour, some other paint to go over the top of it. You could use Vallejo if you want to, whatever, or Vallejo, should I say. So this is obviously an RAF aircraft, so it needs to be RAF interior green. That's not grey green, that's RAF interior green. Now when you look at photographs, if you look online, there's a colour picture, wartime picture in a factory, and you can see that the actual grey green that's used like on the engine bulkheads and stuff is darker than what's in the cockpit. So I like to have two colours. Now this one here is my RAF grey green. This one here is XF71, which a lot of people consider is cockpit green. Okay, so you can see this one is slightly darker than this one. And then this is my own mix of cockpit green. So you can see we've got three greens there going from darker to lighter. A lot of people use XF71 as their interior green. When this was first made, this was actually called IJN interior green. I think I've covered this before. I seem to remember saying this before. IJN interior green is a completely different colour green to RAF green. So what some people use is XF76 for their interior green, or XF21. If you look at a very old Tamiya kit, they gave you a mix, and I've got a feeling it was like 5 parts of this, or 4 parts of this to 3 parts of this to make interior green. So you can see here, this is XF71, which is the interior green. This is XF76, which is very light, and this is XF21, which is sky. Okay, and what I've done, I've mixed these two to get that colour. Okay, so you can see it's slightly darker than the sky and lighter than the XF71, which will work really well on a 72nd scale aircraft because it's going to be dark in there. Near the end of part 2, you saw the interior of my 32nd scale Border Models Lancaster, and no doubt you thought that looked great, that colour. Well, that was that. Okay, the other thing with Tamiya paint, it generally goes slightly darker when it dries, so remember that. Don't ever just mix it and think that's the right colour. You need to paint it on something and let it dry. It will darken up generally. So I'm going to prime everything with grey primer. So I'm going to prime all of these fuselage insides here, the whole lot. I'm going to prime here, I'm going to prime all of this, and I'm going to prime everything that's in this box. But first of all, I'm going to fill in that ejector pin mark on there. We're probably never going to see it, but we do have a window, so when that goes in there, that's going to be sort of sitting like that there, so you may be able to see through that window there. Okay, and I don't really want to be able to see a great big ejector pin marks. It's just good practice to not have them on there. So I'm going to fill that in with some super glue, sand it down flat, and then get everything coated in grey primer, and then I'll come back and see you then. Okay, so we're all ready to start with our painting, and the first thing I'm going to do, these here are the formation lights, or whatever you call them, in the bottom of the fuselage. Obviously if I go paint to go with those green, they will look green when we look through, and if I just leave them clear, when we look into the fuselage, it will just look black. So what I'm going to do is just paint over these in silver. I'm just going to put some silver paint on a brush and just paint over just like that, and that's them done. So now you can see that when we look at them, they're silver rather than being like black or anything else, or green. So they may get a colour tint on them. I got a feeling they're all different colours, aren't they? So I don't have a cloth here to wipe my brush off, but I'll show you the paint I've used here is Vallejo Model Air aluminium. This stuff brushes beautifully, and if you just need a silver paint for car suspension components or bits and pieces of an engine or stuff, this stuff is brilliant because it brushes beautifully, and as you can see, you get a lovely finish with it. So I'm just going to grab a bit of paper towel. This is what I use here. This is ordinary paper towel roll. It's always good to have a roll at hand for doing stuff. I wouldn't recommend paper towel roll for wiping down surfaces and models and stuff. I use old t-shirt material. When I've got an old t-shirt, rather than chucking it out, I rip it up into sort of squares about that size. The reason I do that is because if you've got detail on the model, you'll end up with loads of hairs and fibres coming off. So we can just wipe that paint off of there. You can see I've used an upturned Tamiya jar as a palette, which is make a great palette for everything there. So we can put that out of the way, and then our brush, we can just take some water, got a little jar of water here, brush the excess paint off in the water. Never sort of smash your brush down. You can see what I'm doing here. I'm sort of brushing the brush along the edge of the glass there, just in the water, and then just brushing it along, and then I'm going to brush it along the paper, and then finally just lift the paper over and just give it a clean and just brush over the bristles. Every now and again you can condition your brushes, whatever, but that's going a bit too far, I think. So that's that. So we can just leave that to dry for 5 minutes. That's all it will take. That brown mark you can see there, that is actually in the plastic. It's like some oil has got into the plastic during the moulding. I can't get it off. It won't come off, so it's obviously in the plastic. So that's interesting. So what we're going to do now is just get all this primed. Now, it's not telling us to drill out any holes because we don't need to, because we don't have any. What's all that on there? There's something brown here, like it's. I don't know how that's got on there. It's like brown oils, like I've been using oils or something, but I haven't been using oils on this model. So what I'll do to get rid of that, if you actually have any, this is IPA, isopropyl alcohol. You can get it on Amazon and everything. And I'm just going to grab a cotton bud, dip the cotton bud in the isopropyl alcohol, and then we can wipe that off. Get rid of it, whatever it is. Not quite sure what that is. I was using oils the other day, but I don't think I had this model on the bench, so whether I wiped it off with a cloth or something. But we can see we've got staining in here as well. We've got oil getting into the plastic from the that ring there is actually black super glue. But, yeah, we've washed these parts in soap and water, but it's not removing the oil from around the ejector pin marks, but the IPA will. Okay, so that's worth remembering with Airfix. They tell you to wash it in soap and water, but it doesn't actually get the oil off from around the ejector pin marks. Here we go. So I'm now going to get this sprayed. I'm not going to cover airbrushing in this video. I need to do another video on that subject, you know, dedicated to airbrushing. So if you want to see that, then put the request down in the comments below. But all I'm using, I have here a Iwata Revolution B.R., which is a lovely little airbrush, very old, very handy little thing. And as you can see, I haven't cleaned it properly last time I used it because the needle is sticking. That'll soon free up. You can get stuff like this one here. People will say, oh, you shouldn't be doing this, this is advanced, using an airbrush and everything. But honestly, you look around, you can get airbrushes now for like 7 or 8 quid. And if you polish the needle, then they're going to be, you know, plenty good enough for what you want. So this one here in the UK is like £120. This one here is £50, but I talk about this all the time. You can get them much cheaper than that now as well. So just shop around, you can get some cheap stuff. You could use an old tyre as your air, you can buy cans, you can get a cheap compressor. You don't have to spend a lot of money. So I'm going to get these primed up now. I've got my booth, I'll have the window open with the vent out the window, even though it's freezing outside. But I'll get all this primed up grey and then I'll come back and show you how it looks. Okay, so I have my all the priming done. I also forgot to show you these parts here. These are the parts. We've got the navigator's table, the pilot seat, the control column and the instrument panel. You'll see these are black. I've used the same primer, but it's just a black colour. It's a Mr. Hobby black primer surfacer. So as these are going to be black anyway, I thought I may as well do them black. I haven't primed all the way along here because the Bombay is all going to be black and inside here is all going to be black. And we may as well paint that when we've got the fuselage assembled rather than have to deal with the black paint and glue and everything. So what we'll do now is we'll just get the green done. And it doesn't matter if the green pops into this area here a bit because we're going to be spraying it all black once the Bombay is in. So I'll do one fuselage side here, you can see. So I've got my airbrush here set to about 18 psi. As I say, I'm not going to go into airbrushing too much, but just to give you an idea, I'm going to test first back here on an area it's not so important, okay, and then we can just come along and lightly lay the paint down. This is about 18 psi, and as you can see I'm not cutting off, I'm not going because you then might run more risk of spatter and stuff. You just lay the paint down like so. Okay, now I'd normally be doing this in my booth, I'm doing this just so I can show you. I'm using the instructions to protect my workbench. Okay, so that's that done. Make sure we get it all covered. We don't really need to go right to the back because it doesn't matter. You can if you want, and just get some green there so that when you look in the windows you see green rather than the grey, but it's up here that it really matters. And I'm also going to make sure we get underneath, and I want to make sure I get in behind that that bomb aiming equipment there, just to make sure that's in there. I forgot to tell you I put that in and I actually cut the bomb aiming equipment off. You can see the difference. There's the bar there with the bomb aiming. I've just cut that off, sanded it smooth, and just glued on the bracket as it would have been, as Carl's done in his. So get that painted green there. Same on this side. Just get some green down, just like so. Just make sure we get in all the angles, get everything covered in green, and then we can pick out details later. Make sure it's not too heavy. And if you want to brush paint this, you can. I will cover brush painting in another video. Tamiya paint is very difficult to brush paint with. There we go, the airbrush has run out, so I need to get some more in there so I can do all this. So I'll get all that done now in the booth, and then we'll let it dry for half an hour. We'll come back and see how it looks. So, a couple of hours later now, and as you can see this green paint is all dry, and you can see on here the value of getting rid of all those ejector marks. We've got a nice flat floor, so that's all good. We've got the interior sidewalls here, and we've got all our bits and pieces here. I forgot to mention earlier, these little things here, these clamps, I got these from Premium Hobbies. They are Infini clamps, and they're basically little sort of crocodile clips mounted to metal shafts, and they're really good. And this holder, as you can see there, it's just basically a strip of corrugated cardboard folded over and over and over and over, and taped around the outside has made it into a little tray to hold things up. You don't need to get these. You can see on here I've got a metal shaft in a piece of blue tack stuck to the bottom of the seat, so you can do that. You can stick parts to wooden sticks. Whenever you go to McDonald's or a coffee shop or something, they have the wooden stirrers there. You know, as long as nobody's looking, grab a few, and they're really handy. You can see I've got a bundle of just some round barbecue sticks there, which you can get in supermarkets, and then just cut them in half because they're usually like 2 foot long. And then here we have the flat ones. These are coffee stirrers and stuff, and they're really handy. You can see they've been used many times. You can chamfer the ends, and if you've got to paint something that's got a slot in it, you can wedge it into the slot. With these you can sharpen the ends, you can dull the ends, so if you're doing wheels you can put them in. So lots and lots of little uses for them, and it's just simple little, you know, couple of pence hacks really, rather than buying the proper sort of metal shafts and clamps and everything. But these are really handy when it comes to holding stuff like this, you know, on that tiny little nubbin on the end. It holds that beautifully. So they're well worth having, and they're all metal, so they're going to last you a long time. And then also, because they're all metal, when you want to clean them, you can just dip them in some thinners or your tool cleaner or whatever you use, the dirty old stuff that's come out your airbrush, let them soak for 10 minutes and then just wipe them off, cotton bud, and they come up good as new. So I'd advise them to anyone. You can also get this type here, which has a rubber or whatever material it is, it has a protector on the end, and that saves you actually, if you want to hold something like that, you know, you can hold that in there like that absolutely fine. If you use those, they would obviously mark the plastic because they've got teeth on them. But because they've got teeth, they're better for gripping tiny little parts like that. So, right, what I'm going to do now is not 100% necessary, but it's something I like to do. Now, as you can see in the instructions, we have a decal going on the back of here, or decal if you're on the other side of the pond, on the back of the bulkhead there. We've got a decal going on here with maps, which we probably won't use. We might do, we'll see. We have a decal going onto the instrument panel here, you can see there. And I believe, yes, we've got a decal going onto the seat. So it's worth laying down a sealing coat, because decals don't generally like going onto matte coat. Now this kit, you can see on the box, it's the 70th anniversary of Dambusters. So I know that this kit is at least 10 years old, because we've just had the 80th anniversary of Dambusters. So this kit is like 10, 11 years old. So the decals will also be 10 or 11 years old, so we want to give them all the help we can. So I'm going to put down a sealing coat. Now, I would sometimes use a gloss, but I'm not going to use a gloss, and that will become apparent. And we've also got a decal to go on here as well. That's over the page, because we've jumped ahead, remember. We've got that decal there going on inside the inside there. So I'm just going to give these a semi-gloss coat, and I'm going to use my preferred semi-gloss coat, which is LP24. You could use a gloss coat, which is LP9. You can use X22. There's lots and lots of different gloss coats you can buy. Any one will do. But just remember, if you are using an enamel gloss coat, you can't go in with an enamel wash afterwards like we're going to do to highlight the details and stuff. So bear that in mind. The other thing this does is, because this is a matte paint, if we put a wash in there, whether it be a flory wash or an oil wash or any kind of stain whatsoever, it will stain the paint and it will darken it. Whereas if we seal it, when we put a stain over it, it will just run into the corners. It won't actually stain the surface. So you have the choice of using a semi-gloss or a gloss coat. As I say, I'm going to use a semi-gloss because this stuff dries rock hard and it will seal it. And it will also give a better base for the decal to go down on and seal into. So we're going to basically give all of this a clear coat of semi-gloss varnish. And I've got the airbrush already charged up, and I'm going to do a little bit on camera, and I'll do the rest in the booth because it's late at night now. I haven't got the window open and I don't want to stink the room out. So all I'm going to do is just gently, again about 18 psi, and I'm just going to gently blow this in so I get a nice coat of everything. And this will also pay its dividends. You see these two panels in here, we've got to paint those black. Well, because this is a semi-gloss finish, when we actually come to paint it, if we do slip with the brush, the paint will wipe up easily because it's going to be a water-based paint. Whereas if we left it just with the matte, it would stain the surface. So that, we don't need to come back here because we're not going to be doing anything back there. We're only going to seal in the areas that we're going to put a wash on and or put a decal on. So there we go. We just do that in there as well. Just get in there. Make sure we've got a nice cover. It doesn't need to be dead thick. It just needs to be a nice bit of coverage. Okay, just to make sure it's sealed. There we go. And that'll dry back to a nice semi-gloss finish. So that's absolutely stinking. So I'm going to go and do the rest in the booth. And then I'll come back to you tomorrow when this is dry. And we'll get our decals on. We'll do some detail painting. And then we'll get on with some. Okay, so next day now. That semi-gloss coat on there is all dried. As you can see, we've got a nice semi-gloss finish on there, so it's nice and sealed. Now, if you remember, I said to you just now that one of the other reasons, there is another reason for doing this. And what we're going to do now, we're going to come along and we're going to brush paint, as they've instructed us to do. We've got these two panels here. They're telling us to paint those black. So that's that one and that one. Now, bear in mind that they've asked us to paint the nose black, so we've done it green. But those little boxes in there, we're going to paint those black as well. One of the reasons for sealing this in, if I paint black paint on here and then try and mop it off, it will stain it. But this is now sealed, it's got a coating on it, so I'm going to use a water-based paint like this one here, Model Air from Viejo. And basically I'm going to use this, there's two ways you can use this. And what I'm going to do is use this to paint these panels, and then we're going to do some dry brushing and pick out some details and just make them look a bit more interesting. But the beauty of it is if I miss, I can just mop it up with a cotton bud or just dip a brush in some water, and I'll show you that now. So there's two ways of doing this. We can use an upturned paint jar and just deposit a drop of the paint onto there, just like so. Okay, and then with that you can then come along if you want to with some water So you can grab this. I know this water isn't clean, that doesn't matter one iota. So you just grab some water out of there, place it on here, and then I can mix them together and get a nice watery mix of the paint. So there we go, we got a nice watery mix on there now, and we can come along and we can paint our panel just like so. And the beauty of having a nice watery mix is that it will flow into corners. Okay, it'll probably need 2 coats, but that's absolutely fine. Never try and do anything in 1 coat. That's when you start getting brush marks and stuff. But it will just, as you can see, it flows out, and because it's so thin, it will settle down and you'll have no brush marks, and it will look sprayed on. That's what I'm doing, is picking up the edge there. Okay, so you're not really going to see this anyway because it's all the way up there, but what we'll do, we'll just come in and do the edge here. Okay, so we just get around the edge there just like so. There we are. So that's that. We're not worried about this edge here because when we come to clean all this up, that's all going to get messed up anyway, so we'll brush paint that in afterwards. But you can see there we've got that panel now, that's all painted. We can do the same on this one. In fact, what I'll do now is I'll show you. If I put some black paint on here, okay, and I've made a mistake, and I put some on here, this isn't sealed, that is. I can take a cotton bud and I can just mop that up off of there and not leave a single mark behind. Okay, whereas on here, as you can see, it's sort of got into the paint. Now, I can wet this cotton bud and possibly mop it up, and as you can see, it's very, very difficult to mop it up. But as you can see up here, there's not a single mark left. So that's another good reason for doing that. When you're doing your brush painting, if you slip, if you make a mess, then you can just come along and clean it up. Now, I'm going to try not to slip, but if I do, then I'll show you how I correct it. In fact, I will show you anyway. I'll do it somewhere else. But we'll see if I slip first. I was hoping to get all this done in this video, and I don't think it's going to happen, because if I'm going to show you stuff like this in detail and explain it all, then it's not going to happen. So here's our Bomb Aimer's computer, which is, for this model, I think inaccurate. I'm struggling to find any real information about what they did actually carry up front. There's photographs, there's certainly photographs of aircraft, Dambuster aircraft with the mounting brackets for the ABS bomb sight, but there's also certainly photographs of them without. So again, pick the model you're doing. If you're doing AJG, I don't think it had the frames in. AJT did. But then, how do we know what period of time the photograph was taken of AJT? So they may have been removed for the raid or whatever. And like I said, I'm open to discussion on this. You know, if somebody can prove to me that there was a directive that all these nose areas had to be painted out black before the raid, then I'm happy. I'm happy to go with that. But as I said earlier, I'm not going to go by, there's an oxygenizer there. I'm not going to go by, or economizer, sorry, it's called oxygen economizer. I'm not going to go by, you know, my mate down the pub told me, because he knew Guy Gibson's dad. It's just, you know, I'm afraid that's not really good enough. And a lot of you won't actually care one iota. All you want is a brown, black and green Lancaster sat on your shelf with a great big bomb hanging out the bottom of it. So there we go. Right. So that's that done. Unfortunately, I haven't made a mistake. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to purposely make a mistake somewhere else. Okay, so that's all come out really nice. So we've got those panels in there. It just looks very stark at the moment because it's all just black and green. And we can just come along the top of this panel here and just get that in black. I mean, really the top edge of this canopy would all be black anyway, so we're going to be brush painting that in as well. So it's just good to try and get the edges of panels. So do a bit of practice. If you mess up, doesn't matter, just clean it up, as I'm going to show you to do in a second. This may bore some people to death, but I know a lot of people ask. They ask to see me doing detail painting. So those of you that complain about being long-winded, think about the oodles of other people that ask for it to be long-winded. As you can see, I'm glad this is happening, because this is one thing I did want to show you. There we go. Right, so we've got those all done now. We've done all the edges. Let's get down the edge of this one here. I'm struggling to see anything here. Right, so we've got that around those edges. All nicely done. Right, so if we make up, the one thing I want to show you, this is one of the problems with using an upturn paint jar. You can see that all around here now the paint is drying, and all we've got is this paint in the middle, which is also starting to dry. So I'm going to add another drop of water to it, just try and rejuvenate it, but you can see it's starting to dry out, and that's when the wet palette comes along. Now this is the red grass one. It's really good. There are cheap ones available on Amazon. I would recommend you steer clear. They're not very good. This is basically a wet palette, and what it is, it's a piece of sponge with a piece of paper on it. We've got a 2p coin in each corner. I use the coins to basically hold the paper flat. As you can see, it doesn't do a fantastic job, but also apparently it stops the it stops mold and stuff producing. But the beauty of this is, if you use a drop of paint in there, and I'll show you in a minute, the paint stays wet and it doesn't just dry out like it does, as you can see there in the paint pot. So we'll do that in a minute with a different colour. And always keep the band on, keep it tightly closed. There are various versions of this, but don't go for the cheapest option with these wet palettes, because if you don't get a good one, it doesn't have a good seal, it just keeps drying out, and then it's absolutely pointless having it. So we've got one more box to do. I'm going to see if I can get away with this using this paint. So we've got one more, we've got a couple of boxes up there as well. So I'm going to do this one here. I know this one should be black, and I think this paint has had it. What happens is it gets to the point where you get to the point where you can no longer use it, and that is the problem with using an upturned paint pot. It's great for doing tiny little bits, but when you need it to hang around for a while like this. Do this whole panel, because I believe this was a complete panel that was fitted and it was all painted black. And let's face it, with a 72nd scale nose blister, you're not going to see much of it anyway. But we get all across the top there, get all down the middle, come down the side, there we go, and across the top, just like so. And there we go. That's that done. Okay, so happy with that. I want to get that top edge as well, so I'm going to add a little tiny drop more water into here. Then that's that. So that's that panel done, you can see there. Okay, so if we make a mistake, okay, like I'm going to do down here, okay, I'm going to paint this down here, and say I only wanted to paint up to that panel line. Excuse me. What I'm going to do is take my brush in the water, and I'm just going to clean the brush off until most of the paint is gone. And then I'm going to wet the brush, and then I can come along with the brush wet, and I can clean the brush off, wet it again, just remove the excess, and I can use the brush wet to remove the excess paint that I didn't want, as you can see. Or if it's a complete and utter mess and it's a complete splodge like I've done there, a wet cotton bud, because we've got that sealed surface, as you can see, we can remove every trace of it that was ever there. So that's another reason for sealing it. So it's sealed it for weathering, it's sealed it for oils, it's got a nice coat on there for putting the decal down. There's a million reasons to do it and no reasons not to do it. So get out there, get yourself an airbrush and give it a go, because honestly you will be so pleased you did. If you're new to the hobby, I'm going to need some more black paint, I think. If you're new to the hobby, it is so worthwhile doing. So I'm going to get these boxes in here painted. I think they're going to be a different colour just to add a bit of interest. But we'll get that done now. See you in a minute. Alright, so with the wet palette, I'm just going to use a little bit of brown on here. So I'm just going to squeeze some of this paint out of here. And this is for the leather brown on the base of the navigator's seat, and also the so we can see here we've got the navigator seat there, and I'm going to just pull that seat out, and then I'm just going to put some brown paint in there. Again, this is clear coated, so if we do make any messes we could easily mop it up. Just going to put the brown paint in there. And there we go, that's that done. You're not really going to see much of it anyway, but that's that done, so that's cool. The seat back, in the instructions they're asking us to do it in the 62, the leather. I always do my seat backs in Lancasters in a dark green, but the base of the padding on the engineer's seat, flat engineer's seat, will be brown, so we'll paint that in brown there. Okay. And we're not too worried on here about brush marks, because brush marks will look like leather. There we go. And it's actually quite good. I was just looking at the comments on last night I did a video, like a channel update, and somebody commented that they really enjoy these kind of intermediate videos, because there's loads of beginner videos out there, and there's loads of expert stuff going on. But he said there's sort of a big hole that needs to be filled, and I'm filling that hole, so that's good news. So hopefully you enjoy this. And there's also a lot of people building along, I believe, which is cool. So some of you are using photo etch and everything, so that'll be good. Right, so there's our brown. I'm now going to grab a dark green. We've got 6 minutes left to run. So I'm just going to grab a dark green. You can see we've got a great lump of paint on the end there, so we'll take that off. Put it in our... And the beauty of this is, this wet palette, I can put the top on, I can come back to this after a week and it will still be wet. So where's our pilot seat? Here's our pilot seat here, so we can grab some of that green from there and we can paint this seat back in a nice green colour. And then what I'm going to do, just to take you that extra step further, I'm going to use some washes on here and really enhance it and make it look a lot better than just being 2 shades of green. But before we do that, we're going to put the decals on, and I fear that's going to be the next video. So again, we're going to come down the sides. Remember, it's not just the front that would have been leather, the sides would have been leather too. So come down the sides there, down the side there, and I'm afraid I can't teach you to do, see I just made a mess there, my hand slipped, so I can get that cotton bud and just mop that up. I can't teach you how to do this, this is just something you're going to have to practice. It's something I'm not particularly good at. I've got paint on the inside of that armrest there, and I've managed to touch the backrest with the cotton bud, so we're going to have to go over the backrest again. So as I say, this is the thing with videos, you'll see me make mistakes as well. Some videos that people make are, you know, literally 20 minutes to completely build a kit from start to finish with some music on, and that's absolutely great. I enjoy watching those as well sometimes, but sometimes people want to learn how to do stuff and see how little bits and pieces are done, and that's why I do this. And then across here we're going to do the tops of the armrests, because they had padded leather on them too. Okay, and I've just noticed I've got some on the inside of that armrest there, so I'm just going to get the paint off my brush. You can see what I'm doing, and then with the brush slightly damp, I'm just going to run down the inside of that armrest, and that paint will come away just like so. Okay, and I'm going to grab some more paint and just put it on the top. We can actually build this paint up and use it almost looks like a padding material then. And I'm just going to give it another quick wipe over it because its paint is quite thin. Also get in that corner, there we are, and across the top there. The bracket across the top of the actual seat should be interior green, it's not leather. So there you go, you can see that done now. That's that. Right, now we need to do some black. I've literally got 3 minutes left, so I'm going to grab some black, give it a shake, squeeze it out on here, and I'm going to paint this box. And we don't have any decals or anything detailed for the front. We may see if we can do something, but this is the G box. So that would have been black. Now, some people will be saying you shouldn't be using black, and they are correct. But in this instance, for a sort of intermediate build, we're just using basic colours because people out there may not have an extensive range of paints. But to be fair, if you are using black, it's not really strictly correct because nothing is actually black. It should be a very, very dark grey. It looks much better as well if you do it in a very dark grey. So there we go. Just get around the edges of that. None of this is going to be seen because it's way down inside. You can see one thing I can teach you, I'm holding the part and I'm using my fingers as a rest to steady. If you try and come in like this, you know, it's very, very difficult. You need to be able to rest. There we go, that's that in, and then we're going to do that little box there as well, just like so. Yeah, it's not perfect, but as I say, it's not really going to be seen. Just get around the edges. It's always good to get around the edges if you can, because it never looks good to just have the front face and leave the edges all green. There we are. So I'm just going to dry the brush off, give the brush a quick clean. There we go, have the brush damp, and I can just run up the edge here, clean off any spilt paint. Whoops. Just like that. You can see it's all disappearing before your very eyes. Okay. Right, see you in a minute. Okay, so there we go. We didn't get as much done in this video as I thought we would. Lots of talking though, but I will edit some of it out. But I do feel that talking about the research kind of thing is very important. And please bear in mind, this is something that Steve raised after my comments last night in my chat. When I talk about colours in photograph, using photographs for colours, I don't mean if a photograph shows that this is this shade of red, use that shade of red. What I'm saying is use it to prove that the undercarriage bay in your white and black undersided Hurricane, was it silver or was it white and black? Like this nose area, was it green or was it black? I'm not saying use the photograph to determine the shade of paint. The one I always say, and the example I always use, if you want to see how photographs can mislead you, put into Google Images MiG-23 cockpit. Just put MiG-23 cockpit, and they were that lovely sort of that beautiful Russian green colour. That I love that colour in the Russian cockpits. And you'll see that some photographs make it look almost like a turquoise blue, and some of it almost make it look like this greeny grey, and they're all the same. So bear that in mind. Don't use photographs for actual colours, but use photographs to differentiate. Like with the Lancaster nose, was it green, was it black, was the cockpit green, was the cockpit black, was the armour plating green, was it black, was it there or wasn't it, that sort of thing. That's what I'm talking about. So anyway, thank you for sticking with me. Glad you've enjoyed. I hope you've enjoyed it, should I say, not glad you've enjoyed it. Just got to try and mop that paint up on there, which is on an unsealed, you see I can't get it off because it's on an unsealed piece of an area. So there we are. So we've got our cockpit, we've got the seat there, we've got that panel there, we've got some panels in here all done, and then we've got our seat with the green leather on the backrest. We've got some silver paint there on the throttle quadrants just to sort of brighten that up a bit. I've put this table in because basically it started to flex on that joint. It's very, very weak. So I've just put that in to make sure the pins align. But you can see I've also done that little red box there. That should be on the other side. It should be a parachute on that side. But that little red box is for the thing that goes up in the Astrodome. I can't remember the name of it now. But that's what that's for. We've got the brown leather base on that seat. We've got the oxygen bottle there in silver, which is accurate. It should be on the side of the seat. And then we've got our two boxes and our G there done in black. And I've done that cable in silver, as you can see. So you can see that once we get the seat in there, with the green and everything, we'll have the yellow on the armour plate. We'll have the black instrument panel. We'll have the decals. We've got the silver quadrants. And we're also going to give it a wash and a bit of a weather. So not weather, but just a bit of highlighting, because the aircraft was basically new. It wouldn't have been weathered. So there we go. So that's that. Right. One more thing I will say just before I go. Something I wish I'd thought of before I did the painting. They tell you to drill these holes in the floor for the hydraulic drive motor for the bomb. It would be worth filling those holes over before you do any painting, because they don't look very nice. So I may well do that off camera. But all I will do is put a bit of 1mm plastic rod in there and then just sand it and paint it green again. Because I think when we put this in, let me just have a look. We'll get this slid through here like so. And I think when we look down inside, we're going to be able to see those holes. So I'll fill them and we'll have a look. Maybe I'll put something over them and just paint it green. That way maybe look okay, but we shall see. But anyway, thank you for watching, thank you for listening. I promise you that from part 4 onwards we will really start to push forward, and I've also got another new build coming, which by the time you see this you may have already heard, but it's going to be a double build, which will interest you a lot, I think. So anyway, just in addition, for those that are interested, I'm going to fill those holes in and I'm going to show you how I do it. I've got some black VMS thin super glue here, and I'm just putting the super glue into the hole. Okay, and the reason I put it in the hole, if I put it on the shaft, it will just wipe all the glue off as I rub it down, as I push it down. So I'm just going to put it in the hole, get this shaft, and just put this 1mm shaft, and it's literally going into the hole about 1/2 millimetre deep. That's all, nothing more. And then just cut it off, and then I'm going to put some more super glue in there, just like so, and then I'm going to put the 1mm shaft into the hole, give it a turn, make sure the glue's gone all round, give it a good little push in. In fact, I am going to put some on the end of here because I haven't got much in the hole. Just give that a little shove, cut it off. The thing to do is make sure you don't go too deep. I mean, what you can do is come along afterwards and just push it down but make sure you don't go too deep, because otherwise you'll stop the part going in from the other side. So we'll get some more glue into these holes here. And if you notice, I'm not using liquid cement. The reason I'm not using liquid cement is because it will damage the paint. We'll end up with a mess. We'll have to wait for it to dry. And it's just so much easier to just use super glue, because it will dry faster and it will also fill. Come here. It will also fill any gaps around it, so we can just sand it off and then spray it green, and that'll be it. And it doesn't want to go in this hole for some reason. Okay, but you get the idea, and I'll just let that dry, just wipe that off, and then I'll just sand it off and then paint it green again. Alright, thank you for watching, see you soon, bye for now.